everybody and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you my review of the Caran D Ache Neocolor IIs. Not to be confused with the Neocolor I, because Neocolor I is their regular wax pastels, kind of like a crayon, an artist crayon, and the Neocolor IIs are going to be water-soluble wax pastels. Now sometimes these are referred to by artists as watercolor crayons. They're not really a watercolor crayon. They're more accurately labeled as a wax pastel, a water-soluble wax pastel. Watercolor is a transparent medium, and usually things like watercolor pencils, which also are water-soluble pencils, are a little bit more on the transparent side. These are going to be quite opaque, more gouache-like. So here I've swatched this 40 set on black, and the camera goes crazy when I do that, but you can just see how opaque these really are. So water-soluble wax pastels, I feel, really is the most fitting name. So I've had these for about a year now, and I'm ready to give my review, give you the benefit of my opinion, and let's go ahead and talk about them. So in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at how they perform. We're going to talk about the texture, the consistency, what they're most comparable to. We're also going to be talking about light fastness, which may or may not be important to you. And we're talking about the color selection. So there's a lot of information in this video. Let's go ahead and just jump right in and get started. So I started off with the 40 color set. I didn't feel like I needed the full 80 range, although you can buy a set of 80. And right now on Jerry's Artorama, I'm not sponsored or affiliated in any way, but I noticed that the price is pretty good for the 80 set. It's around $124, which is probably the lowest price I've seen on these in over 5 years. So if you want them, now is probably the time. And then I added about 10 more to my collection from a local art store. I picked some colors that I wanted open stock to add to this set. I didn't really feel like I needed the full range of colors simply because there's a lot of similar or samey kind of colors in this set, and because it is a water-soluble media, I felt I could mix and blend a whole lot to get the result I wanted. So when you get your package, it's going to come in the Caran D Ache red tin with this sort of wrap on it. I would not discard this sleeve, and they encourage you to sort of cut this open because there's like a color chart inside. You may or may not have been aware of that. Inside there is a color chart with the lightfast and star ratings inside, but I don't want to cut mine open because I think it is very beneficial to keep this sleeve on there just in case your tin was to pop open. Now the tin is not marked in any way that these are Neocolor IIs. It comes with a sheet of stickers that you can pick out the one that matches your product and affix it to the tin if you so choose to do so. So this is the 40 color range. There's one missing because I happen to take one out just for a demonstration I'm going to do in a moment. Each of your water-soluble wax pastels is going to have a pigment number, not a pigment number, I'm sorry, a color number and the color name. This is vermilion, and it'll be in several different languages, but no pigment information or lightfast information on each individual crayon. I would really have liked to see that, especially for the price point on these. It would have really made me happy. It would have meant a lot more to me to see pigment information or at least a lightfast rating on each individual crayon. We'll talk more about that in a moment. Then you get 5 little pull tabs here that as you use up your crayon, you can peel that back and reveal more crayon. I do believe they have a specialty sharpener for these if you so choose to sharpen, but I did find that the largest hole in my Faber-Castell, it's called the Universal Sharpener, would work just fine, and I did kind of semi-sharpen one that way, but I really don't feel the need to sharpen these. I suppose you could also, if you have like a box of your kids' crayons laying around, like the Crayolas that have the little crayon sharpener on the back, you could probably use that too. I don't see why it wouldn't work. So the color selection for the 40 set I really thought was just perfect. I also think you can get away with a 24 set on these because again, you can mix so much. And I also think this color selection is really well suited more to florals. And I'll tell you why. Because there's a lot of yellows, orange, reds, pinks, and purples, and I enjoy doing floral work in my watercolor work, and I recognize that the majority of my watercolor palette box is more these type of colors. So it's going to be personal preference. They might have sets like for portrait and for landscape and things like that, but I don't think so. I think it's just they have different assorted sets. But if you take a look here at reds, pinks, oranges, and purples, that is like a third of your box. Not too many blues, a nice selection of blues. You get an ultramarine, a phthalo blue, and a Prussian blue. And that would be your 3 blues outside of your pastel or tints kind of section, which they have really nicely organized down here in the bottom corner. So I would say everything past the olive green, probably like lime green down, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 kind of pastel-y tints. And also you could count this lemon yellow sort of in there and maybe these flesh tones. So that's really convenient that they organize the box this way, and it does make me feel really inspired. So let me go ahead and take that vermilion back out because I need that for a comparison for a moment. In a moment. And then I also, like I said, purchased some open stock colors because I wanted to get the ones that were going to be the most light fast. So let me take a look at this chart here. So up here, everything outside this little box here is the original 40 set. And then I did purchase a few, open stock colors. I got royal blue, aubergine, crimson alizarin, which is supposed to be a 3-star, which is the best, burnt sienna, a mossy green, pale yellow, golden ochre, saffron, and cinnamon. Now, unfortunately, 2 of the colors I picked were a 1-star rating. That happened because when you're purchasing open stock in the store, there's no star rating on each individual watercolor crayon or water-soluble wax crayon. So you gotta I would take a look at the color chart online and write down some of the colors you want and have that information ready with you when you go to the art store or when you're ordering on Blick or Jerry's open stock to supplement if light fastness matters to you. Now let's talk about the light fastness on these. So in the original 40 set, not including these ones down here, 20 of them are 3-star, which they say is excellent. 10 are 2 stars, which is very good, and 10 are 1 star, which they say is just good. I would say it's fugitive, in my opinion. Like good, better, best, I guess is what they're trying to say. They don't give you any information to how these correlate to the ASTM or the blue wool scale, and truthfully, I don't trust the light fastness of these. I am going to perform my own light fast test. I'm getting ready to put a chart together and I will add it to my light fast test results series on this channel, which is coming up very soon. So do be sure to subscribe so you won't miss that, and take a look out for the future for that video. Each of the swatches here, the top half is just the crayon, and then the bottom half has been diluted with water. I think it's best if you don't use too much water. Think of these sort of like the core of a really soft colored pencil. The texture on these is somewhere between a soft, creamy Prismacolor, which I have here for demonstration, and an oil pastel. They're definitely much firmer than an oil pastel, but they're softer than even the Prismacolor Premier. So if that gives you an idea. And they feel really waxy, creamy, kind of buttery. If you noticed from my set here, let me take one of the darker tones. This is just happens to be lilac. See that white frost? If you remember my my review of the Derwent Lightfast pencils, a couple of my Derwent Lightfast had this kind of going on with them. I'm calling it chocolate bloom because that's what it's called in the chocolate world, but I believe that's called wax bloom. But then you'll have some really angry colored pencil people leaving me comments saying, oh, no, foolish girl. Wax bloom is actually blah, 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 blah. Well, it's some kind of bloom, okay? And I mean, that's what we're talking about. You understand what I'm saying, all right? So, down here on this paper, I did want to show you, I laid down a strip of black ink. I went over in a very dilute wash for several of the colors to see how transparent they could be. And I was actually impressed. When used very diluted, the colors were still vibrant and did give kind of a watercolor-like effect, despite the fact that They're definitely, if I had to compare them to a water-soluble paint or water media, I'd more compare them to gouache than watercolor because they're quite opaque, as you can see. If I hadn't already mentioned, this is the Canson black drawing paper. Here I did a lift test to show you how well they lift, and this was after the pigment was already activated, and they did lift really well. The smudge test here, this is important because if you plan to use these in a sketchbook or something like that, you're going to want to put a barrier in your sketchbook, like a piece of glassine, and tape it to the back page so you can kind of flip and open, something to protect it, because even when I used fixative in my sketchbook, the brush and pencil fixative, which usually makes my colored pencils not move at all, these will still move. With a stump and with your finger, they'll smudge and blend. So that's important to know if you're working in a sketchbook. Here I did a dry blend, and here I did a wet blend. In general, I prefer to use these more dry. So what I will do oftentimes, I have a little demonstration here off to the side. We're going to talk in a minute about that. Normally what I would do is, like what I did here for this orb, I laid in my first layer, used a small amount of water with a brush, and I mean a very small amount. Think of the water as the solvent here. For how I like to work with them, to get the most out of them and the most opacity, I like to use them the same way you might use odorless mineral spirits with colored pencil. So you know how in colored pencil you might take a brush and touch it to a damp cotton ball that has the odorless mineral spirits, and you use just the smallest amount so you don't flood the paper and end up with a mess? That's what I do with these. And then I went over with another layer to get this effect. It was very smooth. I don't know how well it'll show up on camera. There's a slight shine, which is to be expected, but overall they perform really, really great. I also found them, because they're a wax base, to be very compatible with colored pencils, especially a wax base Prismacolor pencil. So here, for this little cherry that I did, I actually blended Tuscan Red by Prismacolor is my dark tone here. I used that with a blending stump. This whole thing was done dry because in my original set here, I didn't have that dark color. You know, I didn't have something that was like a dark kind of deep red. And I mean, I could have supplemented it with anything else, but I went in and just used Tuscan Red by Prismacolor. Now, of course, the Prismacolor pencils are not water soluble, but for a dry blend, you know, I found that the Neocolor IIs just blended really creamy right on into the Prismacolor, and I could also use it to sharpen up the edges and get detail. So for mixed media effect, they are very compatible with Prismacolor. Here I took one of the pencils and saw like how I could blend it with white to get variations of tints, and that worked really well. Color blending with different colors worked really well, so there were other ways I could have got that darker tone. I could have mixed it with a brown, even with a little black. They mix and blend super, 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 super well. I don't think that they're going to be for fine detail work, certainly not. I think they're going to lend themselves to more expressive kind of strokes. When I found some pigment information online for these before I made my purchase, I recognized some of those pigments to be very fugitive, particularly the ones in the pinks, reds, and purples. I think they were even using pigment Violet 3 in some of them, which is very fugitive. And when I saw some people online had done independent lightfast testing, they didn't show their results, so it's speculation, but they did tell me that they faded relatively quickly when exposed to direct sunlight. I can't confirm that as of now, but I believe them because I could see for myself that some of the pigment information from what I could gather online was a little sketchy. I don't think that these Caran D Ache Neocolor IIs are up to par with like the Luminance pencils, which I actually recently purchased a set of Luminance, and all the pigment information is really solid on those, and they're rated by the ASTM, so I trust those, but these don't seem to be as high quality in terms of light fastness, and that really does disappoint me. Another thing that's kind of sketchy is you've got colors like ultramarine. They're not using genuine ultramarine here because it's a 1-star. How is ultramarine not light fast? You've got like a yellow ochre and russet. Typically, even in student grade supplies, you can make kind of an educated guess as an artist. Your earth tones are usually going to be the most light fast because they're ochres, they're iron oxides. How the heck is yellow ochre not light fast? That kind of irritates me. But then they've got colors like lemon yellow and salmon here and a light pink that they've got rated much higher for light fastness. And and then this yellow, really bright yellow green, I wouldn't anticipate that would be a 3-star. So I don't know, that's a little bit shady right there. And then that saffron color, I'm disappointed that that's not light fast. I mean, I don't trust their light fast ratings. I would really strongly suggest to you that if you're thinking about using these for your fine artwork, don't just take their word for it. Do your own independent testing. If you're going to be selling your artwork, it matters, okay? It really does matter. Now, I will also say that because these are kind of waxy, I won't say oily, but very waxy and maybe a little, there's probably some oil in here. I wouldn't use your good watercolor brushes for these. If you have a set of brushes, like your good watercolor brushes or anything that you're going to use for watercolor, I probably wouldn't, because it will probably leave a residue on your brushes. I would have a separate set of brushes that you kind of designate specifically to these. They don't have to be expensive, just a golden Taklon brush or maybe a Simply Simmons or something. You don't need a lot of brushes. I think they're very forgiving. I found that no matter what paper I use them on, and in today's video I already showed you 3 different papers I used them on. I also used them on, so I used it on drawing paper by Derwent, Strathmore's drawing paper, Canson black paper, this is Canson's mixed media paper. I used them on this paper by Strathmore, their 500 series cotton, 100% cotton mixed media paper. It doesn't matter. I feel like I even saved this little piece of like cardboard from one of my embroidery kits. I feel like I could even use it on this, you know, like it's very forgiving of a medium. It's not picky, kind of like gouache. You can almost use it on whatever you like. So that's good. So what I wanted to do actually was, I'm going to zoom you guys down in just a moment. I wanted to kind of show you, let me put something here for the camera to focus on. Okay, I wanted to show you kind of the consistency that we're talking about. So this is a Prismacolor in vermilion. The color is as close as I can get, but it's not going to be exact. You can see how just normal, I would say medium pressure maybe. Okay, and then comparatively to this, kind of just normal medium pressure, a lot more color goes down. But they have a very similar, I mean, these are more pigmented, certainly, the crayons. A very similar kind of soft, creamy, waxy glide. These are not like your Crayola kids crayons from your childhood, you know. These are really nice. And you want to use kind of a light hand with these, especially in your beginning layers, because if you fill that tooth too soon, you know, if I use a very light hand, see that? I can kind of, you want to do that at first, because that way you're going to be able to mix and blend and do all those fun things. Otherwise, you know, you clog the tooth too soon, you won't be able to layer anymore. But I can also come in with my Prismacolor pencil, very compatible here, although it won't be water soluble, and I can sharpen up the edge. And I can even blend over and use the pencil to get rid of those little white specks if I so chose. You know, there's crumbs, of course, involved in this process, but I can blend in with my Prismacolor. It is a bit harder, but I can blend, use it to blend. I can use it to sharpen up the edge. Now, Prismacolors I do not use for my professional artwork because they're not light fast. They're just not. Most of them at least aren't. I don't trust them for my professional artwork, but I did find them to be the most compatible with these crayons. Alright, so I think what I would like to do now is just do a little kind of blend with you here, and we'll test the water solubility, we'll do all that. So I'm actually just going to go, this is 100% cotton paper, by the way. This is Strathmore's 500 series 100% cotton mixed media. I'm going to go from this yellow, which is actually called orange, but it's yellow. It's like a warm yellow, to this vermilion shade. And then we'll go into this red, this carmine, which is a 1 star. So, ooh. Yeah, I don't think the light fastness on these, I know they're not up to par with the Luminance pencils that they put out. And that's a shame. It really is. But hey, if you are thinking to sell your work, like I've already said in this video probably a dozen times, but I'm going to reiterate it, make sure you check. Okay, perform your own light fast tests on these. I knew ahead of time from the research that I had done on these, in my mind at least, I was like, I know they're not going to be the best light fastness, but I was very interested to try them. I kind of put them in the same category, I guess, as like my Inktense pencils in that way. So I will enjoy them in a sketchbook, but I won't sell the artwork I make with them, but they're fun. I have 2 brushes here that I've designated specifically for this purpose for using with these. If you are going to be sharing brushes with other mediums, I'd really wash them out well when you're done. Just because if there's a little bit of oil residue in your brush and you go and paint with watercolor or acrylic, the oily, waxy residue, especially if there's a lot of buildup, might interfere with the ability for the acrylic to set properly. So just keep that in mind. Alright, and I'm going to use my filbert brush here. I'm going to tap most of the water off. I don't want a sopping wet brush. And I'm just going to blend. Now they blend beautiful. They really do. Look how creamy. I mean, that's gorgeous. I'm not going to come back and keep overworking that. This is a pretty soft brush. It doesn't hold too much water. Now, that's one way to use them. You don't have to use it like that. If you wanted to use it more like kind of more wet and washy and expressive, you can. So here I have some pigment and just look how well that dissolves. I didn't feel like I had to stick with like using small concentric circles like I do with when I use color pencil. I mean, because look, that'll absolutely all dissolve out and move if you'd like it to. So they're fun. They really are a lot of fun. But I prefer to use less water and apply them a little bit more thickly. You could go over once that dries with another coat if you wanted to. They really, they really are beautiful. I mean, I like this carmine color a lot. I do think that if you want to work more detailed with them, you'll definitely need some other products to bring in, like colored pencils and stuff like that. Look at that. I mean, that color is gorgeous. I love that. It's just a shame that this one's rated a 1. And I know it's not going to be all that light fast. Now, again, that might not matter at all to you, light fastness. It really just depends. I do find that once I've hit it with just a tiny bit of water like I did here to blend, that most of the shine disappeared. So that makes me really happy. But you still can smudge and move that if you wanted to. I mean, it feels waxy on the surface, so I would definitely put a barrier down to be 100% sure that it's not going to smudge around and move too much in your sketchbook. So that pretty much does it and does wrap up today's review. I wanted to thank you guys so much for watching. As always, I'm going to leave it up to you to decide if you think they're worth it or not. Do I think they're worth it? Yeah, you know, I do, but keeping in mind some of the disadvantages of a product like this. I mean, I wish they were more light fast, but that might not matter to you at all. I will say that while I was coloring with some of these, don't push too hard. First off, you don't need to because they're very soft and creamy, but I did bend a couple of these crayons where they kind of started to like lean a little to the side because I was just too heavy-handed with them. But none of them broke or snapped outright. So I mean, they are very durable and strong. I don't think it really matters too much what paper you use them on. Of course, different papers will yield different results. Like for example, if you have a cold press watercolor paper, it's going to take a lot more to fill that tooth. I personally don't find I like using a cold pressed watercolor paper with these. I would prefer to use like a mixed media paper. This is Canson's XL mixed media. This is Strathmore's 500 series mixed media. I think whatever paper you tend to prefer for a colored pencil will probably be the paper you want to use. Something with a fine to medium tooth. But again, it's not picky of a medium. Like, I feel like I could even use these on cardboard and it would probably turn out okay. I think the color selection is really good. I don't think you need every single color, but unless you're one of those people that have full set syndrome and you need to have them all. I did find it a little suspicious that colors that are always light fast in everything, like ultramarine and ochre, were fugitive here. I'm definitely going to do my own light fast testing. Like I said, I highly suggest you do as well. I think they work great on toned papers, dark drawing papers, and black paper. That's a huge advantage here because not every colored pencil is going to work this well on those type of papers. Actually, matter of fact, while we're sitting here and wrapping up the review, let me show you like color for color comparison. We'll go back to that orange. That's as close to this as I can get. Well, let me try this one actually. This one might be a little bit closer. Let's see. This is flame red, but it's orange. So I'll show you that. You don't have to really push too hard because you're going to start bending them, like I said. And then here is the Prismacolor. The color's not exactly the same, but it'll give you an idea of like opacity wise how they compare. Yeah, I mean, I think most of the Prismacolors really will hold their own, but in general, like, you're not going to get this much opacity even out of a Prismacolor. But I do think they're great on black paper. I think they're good on toned paper, a variety of surfaces. They're fun to use. They're very creamy. And you can really control this medium as much as you want. If you want a sheer kind of watercolor effect, you can get it from these. If you want more of a gouache look, if you want more of an oil pastel look, you know, it's a very versatile medium. And of course, the advantage over this, over a true oil pastel is oil pastels in general, you got to be a little careful with them because the oil will rot the paper if you haven't properly primed the paper surface. You need a barrier, absolutely, like a gesso. I don't find that necessary with these. And of course, these, you know, color pencils are compatible with these as well, as where with oil pastels, not so much. So I think they're really fun. They're really soft. They're really creamy. And honestly, they're a little nostalgic. You know, they make me kind of feel like a child again, blending and having fun with my crayons, but these are much better quality. I do think maybe they are a little bit overpriced, to be honest. But they are a lot of fun and I'll definitely enjoy them. So that's it for today's video. Let me know in the comment section down below, do you have these? Do you enjoy these? What kind of techniques do you like to do with these? Because I'd be interested to know. And as always, have a great day, have a blessed day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!